continue, please hold your applause. You are free to use the cumulative time as you wish, but folks who are here to hear what you have to say have a lot of questions about a lot of different issues. So can we move on? Okay. Mr. Arcuri, you're going to take this question first. Many people in this region are concerned that hydraulic fracturing will reduce property values and contaminate water in their land. Will you fight in Congress to make gas industry subject to the Clean Water Act and Safe Drinking Water Act, removing exemptions for this industry?
Yes, I will, and I am an original co-sponsor on the FRAC Act, which does exactly that. I work very closely with Maurice Hinchy and a number of other people in Congress down to DeGette from Colorado. They have the issue as well. And I've done one extra thing. When the CLEAR Act came through, my committee, I'm on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, but we also oversee clean water. When the CLEAR Act came through, and the CLEAR Act was the bill that we put regulations on the companies that drill out in the Gulf of Mexico. When that came through, I had the idea that maybe what we should do is not just worry about regulating drilling in the ocean, we should worry about regulating it on land as well. So what I did was I wrote an amendment and offered it, and the amendment said that the EPA would oversee runoff water issues with respect to drilling by oil and gas companies on land. Now, that was one of the Halliburton exemptions that were taken out in 2005, but I think it's absolutely critical that we get the EPA engaged in this. I mean, look, we can live without gas, we can live without oil. I mean, it'd be difficult, but we can do it. We can't live without clean water, and frankly, I think that any discussion of this has to start with what are we going to do to make sure that our water stays clean and that we don't pollute it. That is our greatest natural resource.
Mr. Hanna?
I thought that the 2005 exemption was wrong when it was passed. I feel the same way today, so in answer to your question, yes, very comfortable with changing that law, and so I think we agree on it.
And our next question will come from the media panel. Gary Wickham from WDW.
Thank you, Mark. What will you do, and I don't use this question first.
That would be Mr. Hanna.
What will you do to fix Social Security, and whatever you do, will it include raising the cap?
Social Security, 1935, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, 34 people to one. Today, and it's been a great success story, 30% of the people on Social Security today collect 90% of their income from it. We know that. I've never said, although the ads say I have, I've never said that I was in favor of privatizing it, and for the record, I'm not. This year, 2010, is the first time that Social Security is underwater, meaning there is more money going out than coming in. Part of the reason for that is high unemployment, 14.5 million people out of work, 17% underemployment. So there are not as many people paying into those two systems. Medicare is included in that. By 2016, Social Security will be permanently collecting, by estimates, or collecting less than it pays out. The point is, by 2037, plus or minus a little bit, Social Security will have collected, if the government pays it, and I'm confident it will, back all the IOUs. So that along 2037, we're going to find ourselves in a position where either benefits are going to have to be cut, or we have to put into Social Security to maintain it at the level it's at. That's everybody, I think, agrees upon. The problem with Social Security is not the system that it works under. The problem is our government spends too darn much money. We have a deficit that is a function of our spending disease. We have borrowed money from Social Security. There is no money in it other than what comes in, or now what the government is going to have to put back into it. There is a drawer someplace full of IOUs. So it is the problem is that when you have a Congress that spends in the last 3 years $1 trillion deficits, 3 years in a row, and this year there's a $1.4 trillion deficit roughly right now, and it's those deficits that really put Social Security at risk. So it's the policies that my friend and opponent, Mr. Arcuri, have supported. The omnibus bill, the stimulus package, which we can talk about. All of those big spending items that amounting to, we owe $14.5 trillion in current unfunded debt in this country. We owe over $50 trillion in future unfunded debt. Everybody in this room owes someplace between $150,000 and $200,000 in future unfunded debt. We have spent our prosperity in this country. We are killing the goose. Which brings me back to my life. I'm a private businessman. I pay in 70%, and everyone pays in, no matter where you work. But 70% of the jobs in our economy are created by people who do what I did in the private sector. 70% of our economy is the consumer. We need to remember that. We cannot tax ourselves into prosperity. We cannot rob our children's future to substitute our own bad judgment presently. And that's what we're doing. What we're doing is irresponsible. This Congress left without a budget. And Richard Spratt, I think, you can help me with this, the Democratic National Committee, said if you can't budget, you can't lead. We don't have a budget right now, but we still have a $1,400,000 deficit. So the deficits are the problem. That's what puts Social Security at risk. That's what we should keep our eye on, because it is going to come to pass that we need to tax ourselves to secure Social Security, and I'm in favor of that. It is not an entitlement program in my mind. It is a right. People pay into it. The government is obligated to pay them back and support them. And it will be in trouble someday, whether people like to hear that or not.
Remove the cap.
The cap being?
The cap being the maximum income that Social Security is collected.
I think that may be, in my own case, yes. I think that we are going to wind up means testing some of this at some point, if that's the question.
Well, the question is, would you raise the cap?
The cap on?
Cap.
Yeah. Well, it's at $196,000.
Right.
You're going to have to raise the cap, or it's just not going to be viable. I know that that's counter to my party. I'm not in favor of raising taxes, but the cap was just a few years ago $54,000. Now it's $96,000. The age limit is going up, whether it's already law. It'll go to 67. I think in 2027 or 26. It's something you have to talk about. I mean, let's be adults here. We can't be a country of 300 million special interests. Somebody has to pay the bills, and we need to understand them.
I think what Mr. Hanna says is he would support raising the caps, which means he would support raising taxes. I don't support that. I don't think we need to do that. I think we can fix it another way. But before I get to that, I think the biggest fear that we have, I think the biggest concern that I have with respect to Social Security is the potential for privatization. And I think therein is a real problem that we need to make sure it doesn't happen. And I know Richard has said that he didn't say those things, but in the Utica Phoenix newspaper, he said that with respect to Social Security, everything needs to be on the table, including personal Social Security accounts, which are private accounts, which is privatization. And I think that will fundamentally change the way Social Security was set up. Social Security was set up not to be a retirement account, but to be a safety net. You know, you have your retirement account, you have your 401k. That is not what Social Security was intended to be. And I am very concerned that if we allow it to be privatized, like some people are talking about doing, that will totally change what happens. What if people make bad investments? What if young people make bad investments? Do we then turn around and say, okay, you made bad investments, we're still going to cover you under Social Security? Because that's what Social Security was supposed to do, to be the great safety net. So I think that privatization will be extraordinarily problematic, and I don't know, and Richard said that before, and I don't know if he still means that, or if that was just at that point when he said it, but I don't think we need to raise the caps. I think if we keep the federal government out of swinging with that money in the Social Security fund, then we will have more than enough. And I'm concerned with one thing, that, you know, many things, but in that regard. But one of the things President Obama has recommended was a committee to go in and find out where they can save money, including saving money with respect to Social Security. Well, the issue, and Richard and I agree on this one, the real issue on Social Security is not letting the government swing with that money, keeping it, holding it. I mean, because there are IOUs there. That is not a functional way to run it. It should not be run that way. And I think we can stabilize Social Security without raising the caps by keeping the government out of that fund.
Well, I mean, that sounds nice, right? But here's a gentleman who has supported deficits that absolutely guarantee we will have to raise the Social Security. So there's a certain amount of hypocrisy there. If you feel that way, then act that way. Cut the cost of government. Make it so that Social Security is secure. That's how you do it, not by wishing you could do it, not by running around trying to tax us more.
Well, you were the one that said you wanted to raise taxes on Social Security, not me. You just said that.
No,
You said you wanted to raise the caps, which is raising taxes. This is my time. But secondly, the deficit doesn't have anything. Deficit doesn't have anything to do with respect to the Social Security fund. And incidentally, I am the only one of the two candidates that actually has a plan for cutting spending by a 3% across the board cut. I mean, so I think that when you say it, you don't necessarily have the facts correct. And I think that we need to reiterate the facts because clearly, Richard, I don't think you expressed them correctly.
Okay, let's move on to a different topic.
And incidentally, just to defend myself somewhat, I've never suggested Social Security should be privatized. That is a common tool that is being used all the way across the country because what Mr. Arcuri knows is there are 137,000 people on Social Security in this district, more than any other districts in the state. So it is fear-mongering. It appeals to the most basic instincts, and it is wrong, and I never said that, and I know what he's referring to. But it's not accurate. I think people are going to find out that we are going to be more and more responsible for ourselves, and alternatives like 401ks are going to make more and more better sense.
I mean, actually, it's 127,000 people that are on Social Security, and I've quoted that statistic a number of times. But again, I'm just telling you what the Utica Phoenix paper reported with respect to individual retirement accounts, and I didn't say it. I just read it in the paper.
Okay, new topic.